Hello, in this video I will talk about Popgoes Arcade, a Popgoes RPG that's part of the Fazbear fanverse. This will sort of be a review of the game, and spoiler alert, I really like it, but we will get to that soon. I will be talking about the Dead Forest and the Machinist. Please like and subscribe, and remember that this video is just my opinion. Alright, to kick things off, I want to talk about the things surrounding the game before we talk about the actual game. I wanted to make this video because I feel like Popgoes Arcade is extremely underrated. There's very little content made about it other than playthroughs of the game, and I feel like Popgoes Arcade is very rarely talked about in the Five Nights at Freddy's community, and it's a real shame, because this game looks like it was made with a lot of passion, and it is a fun turn-based RPG. I feel like it's also cool that this is the first fanverse product released on Steam. It's really cool to see a FNAF fan game such as Popgoes on Steam. Dare I even say this is the best turn-based RPG where you play as a weasel. Now, let's talk about the game itself. I want to first go over the visuals and audio. I will talk about these things first because I have the least to say about them. This game looks absolutely amazing. The game has two art styles, the style outside of the arcade machine and the arcade machine game itself. The room itself has a really realistic, detailed and good art style, especially the endings, but I won't spoil them. I really love how the game reflects on the arcade machine. It looks absolutely amazing. And from what we've seen, Popgoes Evergreen will also have this beautifully stunning art style, which gets me really excited for Popgoes Evergreen. I mean, just look at this. It's easy to see that an absolute ton of effort was put in to make the environment look really good. It is definitely an improvement over the first Popgoes game. There's this art style and the game's art style itself. It is pixelated, which I think really fits since this is an arcade game after all. I absolutely love how this looks too. The sprites look really good, they have a nice style to them, it is very appealing to look at, very vibrant, very colorful, which I feel like fits a lot. I don't know what more to say, looking at this game just brings me joy. It pulled off the style it was going for very well. Not much more to say other than I just really dig the pixelated style of the game. I think going for the pixelated style was a great choice rather than having 3D renders such as FNAF World. I just think the pixelation looks way better. The enemies look very good and I love the fact that the bosses are characters from FNAF. I feel like that's a really cool touch. And the fact that Bonnie's face is missing in his boss fight in The Machinist, it's just really nice to see that neat reference. Well, I don't have much more to say, I just really love both of the art styles. Before we move on to gameplay, I wanna talk about the sound. First of all, the soundtrack. And oh boy does this game deliver. This soundtrack is absolutely amazing. Kane Corder, the creator of Popgoes, uploaded the soundtrack on his YouTube channel. I recommend checking it out, because this game is filled to the brim with absolute bangers. I feel like the soundtrack does a really good job at setting up the mood for places like the North Forest, and the calmer areas such as the garden for example. And especially the music that plays when you, well, go for the secret ending in the Dead Forest. I don't wanna spoil the ending in case some of you plan on playing the game. I feel like the soundtrack has a really nice unique feeling to it. I am listening to the soundtrack right now as I am writing the script for this video. I don't know what more to say, I just really love the soundtrack, it really suits the game, and it is nice to listen to outside of the game. It has very memorable and recognizable music. I feel like if you played the music to me at random, I would be able to tell which song appears where and when in the game, which I feel like is really good. Both this game's visuals and soundtrack are amazing. I know I'm being very positive, but like, I genuinely can't find anything to complain about. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack isn't the best thing ever, and neither are the visuals, like, the soundtrack won't change your life or cure all diseases, but it's a really good soundtrack, and I listen to it when I'm not playing the game from time to time. The rest of the sound is fine. There's sound effects for most things, and they work, they're not bad. What do you expect me to say? There's sound effects, nothing special. There's sound effects for nearly every action, and they're good because really, how do you make sound effects bad? They are good at alerting the player of certain stuff, such as an enemy getting a crit attack, or when they hit your shield, when you regen health, all of that stuff. The sound effects aren't anything special, but they're good. Let's talk about the gameplay, shall we? This game is an RPG. A turn-based RPG, to be exact. You play as Popgoes who can attack, block, and use items. The beginning of the game is quite simple. However, later on, Popgoes unlocks new abilities, such as Balloon Boy's abilities and the abilities he gets from Chica, Foxy, and Bonnie. These abilities help spice up the gameplay, especially later on when you hit the cap for your max health and max damage, and your enemies straight up have more health and are stronger than you. What I really like about Popgoes Arcade is that you don't really have to grind. If you strategize and use the items effectively, you can win a lot of the battles using strategy. You still need to buy the health and attack upgrades, but I really like that this game isn't grindy, because well, grinding isn't fun, at least for me. If you don't grind, the game is quite challenging. You have to really strategize, but I really like that. Defeating my enemies, and especially the bosses, although I was at a disadvantage, felt satisfying and earned. Because strategizing and using items at the right time to be able to overcome your challenge is really fun. The only times I didn't have fun in a battle is when I am battling an enemy much weaker than me. But thankfully later in the game you get the ability to run away from encounters, which helps a lot, although I feel like that ability should have been obtainable for the player sooner. The same goes for the sprint ability, which allows Popgoes to run, because Popgoes felt a little too slow. You feel it especially when you have to walk from one of the inns to a boss, but it's not that big of an issue. There is also the Machinist, or the Machinist? I'll just go with Machinist. It has slightly different and more difficult gameplay, because normal enemies can use shields and block you from using your abilities, which adds to the difficulty because your jump, hook, and dig ability become really important later in the game. The game is just really fun. Fights with enemies such as the Machinist, King Freddy, and other bosses were a fun experience. They were pretty challenging actually. It definitely takes some strategy to win against a boss if you don't grind. And I found that trying to beat a boss over and over again and trying to learn which strategy will work the best was a really enjoyable experience. The game is basic at the start, but gets interesting later on when Popgoes gets new abilities to use, and so do your opponents. One other thing to add about the grinding part, Balloon Boy gives you a hit list, and in return you gain a certain perk. However, if you deactivate the enemies in the forest, he will offer you the perk in exchange for money, so you don't have to grind to get the perks. Which is really good because you need all of the perks to access the Machinist. Oh yeah, you need to 100% the Dead Forest to gain access to the Machinist. But it kind of makes sense because it's not like Machinist starts you off from scratch again. The Machinist lets you keep everything you got in the Dead Forest, which is nice. The Machinist introduces new gameplay elements which help keep things fresh. Enemies can now disable your abilities and have a shield. And also overkilling. You get metal from overkilling, which you can exchange for items and upgrades. Oh yeah, and in the Dead Forest you can also find these crystals, which you can use to upgrade your abilities. These are really important, because you're gonna want all of these abilities for the harder bosses. I just really love the gameplay of Popgoes Arcade. It is a simple, turn-based RPG. It's nothing extraordinary, but it's just really fun. The gameplay is just enjoyable. Now that I talked about the core gameplay, I want to talk about the smaller stuff. Like the gilded enemies, for example. The gilded enemies have a small chance of appearing. They're gold and drop a lot of money when you kill them. It reminds me of shiny Pokemon. In Pokemon have a very small chance of being shiny. A shiny is a variant of that Pokemon, just with a different color. A small thing to add, but it's exciting when you encounter a gilded enemy. You can also find different paints, which change the color of Popgoes' room floor, and his eyes, and his vest. A small addition, but a fun one. Every time I found a new paint, I would go to the inn and see how it looked like. It's also fun to take a look at the bestiary from time to time. The bestiary tells you about the opponents you fought, how much health they have, their attack, special abilities, crit chance. It's a really nice addition. How long was this game? Well, I completed both Popgoes the Dark Forest and Popgoes the Machinist in 5.5 hours. This game is only $5 and I feel like I got my money's worth. I got a fun and enjoyable experience, and if I'm gonna be completely honest, I feel like around 5 to 6 hours is a good length for this game. I mean, it is better to have it be that length than to have necessary grinding in the game just to increase playtime, and I only got half of the achievements. However, I don't plan on getting the rest because, well, I completed the game and I'm happy with that. I feel like this game is absolutely worth it. I recommend playing it if you haven't already. Popgoes Arcade isn't the best game ever, shocker I know, but it's a solid, short, turn-based RPG, especially if you are a Popgoes and FNAF fan. This game doesn't have much replayability, but it's an RPG, so I don't really blame it for that. Okay, now I will go into some spoilers for both the Dead Forest and the Machinist. So yeah, spoiler alert, I think that the ending for the North Forest is really cool, although I personally feel that getting to the ending is a little confusing, but the player is given hints on how to get it, although personally I was a little unsure of how to get it, so I had to look up how to get it online. I'm talking about the Black Rabbit ending. By the way, you need this ending in order to 100% the game and unlock the Machinist. The Black Rabbit ending is really cool. You need to collect Black Rabbit parts, which is a fun reference to Popgoes, where Popgoes prints out Black Rabbit parts in order for the Black Rabbit to kill you when he's fully assembled. Then you traverse the FNAF free minigames, and I think that this is really cool. It was really surprising seeing all the locations in the Five Nights at Freddy's free minigames. It was a fun surprise. Then you enter a fight with this guy, and when you attack... yeah, this moment was really cool. I love how he breaks the screen of the arcade machine. It is both creepy and really cool. It looks really well animated. How you actually get the ending is you just don't attack this guy and he won't kill you. In summary, this game is absolutely awesome. It looks very good and the gameplay is super solid and fun. I think that it would be really cool if we got a new DLC to the game, kind of like The Machinist, a DLC that expands the world of Popgoes Arcade and introduces new mechanics. But you know what? I think that they are plenty busy with Popgoes Evergreen, which also looks amazing by the way. I totally recommend playing this game if you like RPGs. I have a soft spot for Popgoes Arcade, okay? Ever since I first played it, I just really liked it, and I'm kind of disappointed that the community kind of forgot about this game. Thank you for watching this video. I just wanted to show some support for Popgoes Arcade, which I feel like is an underrated game in the FNAF community. Like and subscribe. This was GameSpeaking, and goodbye.